Hello, 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 everybody. This is Irina Strunina, and this is our podcast, Diabetically Speaking with SmartMove360. We just ran into some technical challenges, and this is why we are coming to the group in recorded format. So today is Thursday, and we are still on air with Steve, who is my guest today, and we will be talking about life with diabetes. And I'll ask first Steve to introduce himself because he is the person who can share a whole lot about life with diabetes. Please, Steve, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This will be a
Yes,
good conversation.
yes,
Uh,
please tell us about yourself.
so I'm a nurse with mental health and ER background. I'm a board certified nurse coach,
Mm-hmm.
which is a specific specialty in the world of nursing. And then I've been a bedside nurse, just a floor nurse. I'm the guy that you'd see if you come into the ER or if you come into a mental health unit since 2015. Most of
Yes.
that time I've been a travel nurse. So I've been in like just about 30 different departments in 5 different states. Um, and I'm a type 2 diabetic myself. Um, yeah, so that's why I volunteered to be part of this thing.
Yes. Well, if anybody is following us, you probably heard our podcast with Steve last month when he shared his experience as person who been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Today, we will be looking at it from the professional side and using Steve's experience working in emergency room in the hospital as a bedside nurse. I have a lot of questions for him. And Steve, thank you for finding time to meet with me today. And let's talk about this.
All right.
So, say someone got to the hospital for some reason. It could be high blood pressure. It could be some wound that is inflamed and out of control. It could be a trauma or the heart attack, whatever. So people got to the hospital. People got admitted to the hospital, and doctors run all the necessary blood works and doing all the testing, all they need to know to help you the best possible way. And while they were doing that, they find out that you have diabetes. So what happens then?
Well, in fact, that is how I got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a type 2 diabetic, and I got diagnosed because I was in the hospital. I had gone to the ER myself because I had an infection in my leg that was back by the time I got there, I was septic. So the infection had, grown. Um, and so I expected a bunch of blood, and I'm an ER nurse, right? So I expected a bunch of blood work and whatever. I
Yes.
did not expect that they would draw A1C. So
Uh-huh.
A1C is specifically the blood test that's drawn
Yes.
to that's used to diagnose someone as diabetic or pre-diabetic, something like that.
So hold on,
Uh,
I'm sorry for interrupting. You're saying that A1C, they do run this test in ER?
yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so anyway, my A1C was, I believe it was 9.9 initially,
Okay, pretty
and
high.
the high end of normal
Mm-hmm.
is, I would have to look to double check, but it
Five,
would,
six.
I believe it's 6.5 maybe or 6.
Yeah, five,
And
six,
mine
and
was
then you
9.9.
become pre-diabetics. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, it's good to be an achiever.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Uh, yeah. So mine was plenty high. So that the scenario that you presented is actually the way that I got diagnosed
Okay.
myself.
And
Um,
so
and
what happens next?
I've had lots of these new diagnoses conversations,
Uh-huh.
right? With people who are, I've just been diagnosed and now what? I've had lots of these conversations.
Well, at
So
least you knew what questions to ask.
yeah, I've had a lot of these kind of questions. So questions about like, well, now what do I eat and what medicines am I going to be on, and
Uh-huh.
like how is this going to affect my other things? I still have high blood pressure. I still have anxiety. In fact, maybe now I have more anxiety, right?
Yes.
All these different things. Yeah, I've had a lot of those.
Okay. So while you were in the hospital, usually hospital is taking care of the patient. They surprise them very often that you
Yep.
have diabetes.
Yep. It was a
So
surprise for me. Yep.
as many others, we hear those stories almost every day in our Facebook group, Diabetes 101 for Beginners.
Yep.
So you learned that, and then while you're in the hospital, you are in the hospital care. So hospital is managing your blood sugar with medication.
Right.
Not sure about the food because I witnessed that the menu for people with diabetes in hospital not always the optimum, but medication works. Medication works. They bring it down. They take care
Yep.
of your whatever other issue you are there for, and then it's time to discharge. So here is this person who got admitted to the hospital because of one issue and being discharged from the hospital with the other issue. What people need to know when they are leaving the hospital? What their steps? What they should be um, investigating or connecting with someone? What are the steps?
So yeah, while you're in the hospital, you get managed by the hospital, and
Mm-hmm.
so typically that'll be depending on your blood sugar. It might be simply like insulin injection. It's possible that it would be an insulin drip if the blood
Mm-hmm.
sugar is high enough. And if it's really high enough and you've gone into DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, that's a medical emergency. So if that's the problem, then there'll be a host of other medications too, because we need to move electrolytes around and protect the heart and like all that kind of stuff. And we
Yes.
want to bring blood sugar down, but not super fast.
Mm-hmm.
We want to bring it down, but we don't want to push it off the table, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, so now you've been, or if it's not super terrible bad, then maybe it's just managed with like glucophage, um, or a metformin, right?
Uh-huh.
Oral medication. Well, anyway, so then you finally get discharged to go home. There'll be some canned discharge instruction, which means so as the nurse, I haven't really read through all of the discharge instructions that I'm about to give you. I've looked at them briefly, so I know what to talk about, but the discharge process itself is going to go very quickly. It's only going to take a few minutes.
Yes.
And it's going to be a time that's going to spark a bunch of questions for you, but it's not going to be a time where your questions are going to get answered.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm all about discharging you because there's going to be somebody else to come to this room as soon as you go home, right?
Yes.
Um, I tried to edit that in my brain so it didn't sound like kick you out,
Okay.
but we are all about discharge. We want to get another one.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, you're likely to go home with a gob of questions. In fact, probably maybe more questions than when you came in.
Absolutely.
Um, I am the ER nurse who did the thing that we always tell people not to do, which is we tell people don't go to Google.
Uh-huh.
I went to Google,
Yes.
right? So some of the things you can expect as a newly diagnosed diabetic is, well, first let's talk about anxiety, because there's likely to be some anxiety because you have this new diagnosis that's going to be life altering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if not altering, then it'll at least have an impact
Yes. For
in your life,
sure.
right?
Definitely.
Um, so the things that happened to me were, and I tell patients this as I'm talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
The things that happened to me were, I don't generally feel like I have a lot of anxiety, but now as a new diabetic, I did far more than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I'm just kind of screwed. If I eat food, I'm going to die because my blood sugar is going to go too high and I'm going to die. Or if I don't eat food, I'm going to die because, of course, I'm going to starve. Right.
Yes.
So I felt like well, I'm screwed either way. Plus, I'm kind of attached to my legs. I like them where they are. I like my
Mm-hmm.
kidneys both work. Like all the other pieces, parts work, and I like that. So, and I know the effect that diabetes can have, like the traumatic effects, kind of that diabetes can have on the body over time.
Yes.
I feel like it's the worst diagnosis I'd ever been given. Um, I also found that meal plans were really contradictory, which was very frustrating for me. So I read about keto and low carb, and I read about carnivore, and I read about vegan, which is not something that I do, but I was willing to consider it because I guess that's the answer. So I
Mm-hmm.
read about all these different diet plans, and all of them are the right answer, and all of them are scientifically backed, and it was super confusing for me. So here's what I did personally is I just decided to eat more of the food that I already knew was good for me and less of the food that I already knew was bad for me. And then just do more exercise. But I decided to just do exercise that I think is fun because if I enjoy doing it, I'm more likely to do it.
That's
Right.
very wise
So,
suggestion.
for example, I'm not into yoga. So it's unlikely if I accidentally signed up in a yoga class, which is the only way I'd get into one.
Uh-huh.
If I signed up in a yoga class, I'm not likely to go, right?
Yes.
But I enjoy swinging kettlebells because it's dynamic and I get to move a lot. And so I do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then other things that are dynamic, lots of moving. So, and then same with food. Like I decided, okay, just relax a little bit. I already knew that barbecue chips and Oreos aren't good for me.
Yes.
So, like, okay, I can eat less of that.
Uh-huh.
And I already knew that, like, vegetables, sorry for the bad language here, but I already knew that vegetables were good for me. And so, okay, fine. I'm willing to eat more of that. Like that's oversimplified, but that's basically it.
Uh-huh.
So the first thing that I did for me, and the first thing that I recommend actually to somebody who's a newly diagnosed diabetic, especially if they're having this problem of anxiety, is just relax.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then once you calm yourself down, I had to do this. Once you calm yourself down, then you can begin to respond as opposed to react. So initially I was in reaction mode, right?
Yes.
Where I'm just scrambling around and I'm just going to grab whatever information. So I settled down, got myself to a place where, okay, I can respond, which is making a measured response, one that you've had time to think about and consider. So there's lots of different medications that can help somebody control diabetes. None of them are going to reverse it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, medication doesn't go to reversal. Medication just goes to controlling symptoms or controlling factors that influence blood sugar.
Yes.
Lots of different medications that do that. For me personally, and I talk to clients about this and patients when I was in the hospital, is lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
Which again comes down to doing more exercise that I'm going to enjoy, so I keep after it. Eating more of the food that's good for me, less of the food that's bad for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then from that position, I can experiment. So I can like try this food and like, well, yeah, that was okay. I can add this or like, well, it was okay like without this. Oh, mindset was a thing. I talk about that too. Um, so the way mindset looked for me when I came from a position of I cannot have this, like
Yes.
let's use, all the good the good food groups. ice cream, candy bars, potato chips, soda, you know, the good food groups.
Good food. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I came from a position of I cannot have this, then I could muscle through that for a period of time.
Yes.
But then ultimately I'm going to go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, anybody who's ever walked past a wet paint sign, that's like a beacon, like, hey, put your finger here and see if it's still true.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Sign that says don't do that is where we want to go. So what I did then is, like the issue with soda, for instance, I drank so much Mountain Dew that some people would say it was unhealthy. The Pepsi company was probably excited about it because it was a lot.
Uh-huh.
But the way I stopped doing that is I decided I'm a person who doesn't drink Mountain Dew.
That's right.
And then it was no longer I cannot. Then it was just like, yeah, that's just not something I do.
Mm-hmm. It's just like I don't smoke. No.
Right. Right. So I'm not tempted to smoke. It's okay with me if you do, but I am not tempted to smoke because I don't smoke.
Mm-hmm.
When I made that shift in my brain, then I haven't had a Mountain Dew since then. I still
Okay.
occasionally drink some soda once in a while, but mostly what I've done is I found replacements. So I can get kind of the carbohydrate, the carbonated bite, you know,
Yes.
like flavored water, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Like I drink mostly flavored water
Mm-hmm.
as I get flavor and I get the bite of carbonation,
Yes.
right? Without the carbohydrate, the sugar, all that other stuff.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So those two things for me were the first two steps. One is settle down from anxiety to a place where I could just respond. And then the second was shifting my mindset from I cannot to like from I cannot, like I'm not allowed, to like, yeah, that's just not something I do. Or
Mm-hmm.
this is what I do.
Yeah. So basically, you are in charge what you are
Right.
doing, right? You
Right.
are making decisions and making choices, not that somebody made choices for you.
Right. Now, this won't be the other thing I've done. This is not going to be appropriate for every person. Um, and so we're going to go a little bit naughty now. So it's going to be important for your listeners to talk to their healthcare team
Yes.
about what they should do. But in my case, I decided I'm not going to take insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, and then I took metformin for a while, but it always gave me really bad stomach upset.
Yeah.
Um, and so I finally quit it. In fact, I was the patient that we see in the ER and we tell them not to do this, but I did this too. I'm the patient who quit medication without talking to my doctor
Okay.
because the metformin was tearing me up when I'd eat it,
Uh-huh.
when I would take it, and I tried to adjust it against my eating times, like trying to eat it earlier or later, further or closer to when I ate to see if that would impact things, but it didn't. It just, whenever I took it, it really tore me up. So I quit taking it. So what I decided, this is just for me, your listeners are going to want to talk to their healthcare team before.
As a nurse, registered nurse, you strongly recommend them to speak with their healthcare team.
Yeah. Yeah. With that said, I've lowered my A1C from 9.9 when I was diagnosed to most recently it's 7.1.
All right.
And I don't take any medications.
Uh-huh.
I do take supplements, but I don't take any medications.
Okay.
And I've made doctors angry. Like, you're a nurse, aren't you supposed to know this stuff? Like, well, I'm also a person and I've made a decision about how I choose to approach this issue. And so then what I've done is I've found doctors who are willing to, like, if you work with a coach as an example, the coach isn't supposed to be telling you do this, do that. The coach is supposed to be like, based on your idea, let's talk about how to make your idea most successful.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I found doctors who are willing to have a conversation like that, even if they didn't agree with my approach. They're willing to, like, okay, let's talk about how to make this approach most successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible, depending on your overall health picture, that medications might need to be a part of somebody's plan for a while.
Yes.
That's possible. But there's on your Facebook group and like others, there's lots of information available. If someone's willing to do the work, they can like take direct control of a lot of different healthcare problems, like healthcare diagnoses by lifestyle change.
Yes, that's something that we learned from talking with many healthcare professionals and people who are living with diabetes and getting good results in managing their condition, that
Right.
this is something that definitely mandatory to happen. If you, right, if you got diabetes, living this lifestyle, and you expect to change something with your diagnosis without changing your lifestyle, it's not going add up. It's not happening, right?
Yeah, I think that this quote it belongs to Einstein. I think, but or Isaac Newton. I don't know. Anyway, some old dead guy who's really famous. But basically, the quote is that we can't correct the current problem with the same problem that we used when we made it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's basically what the quote is. Another one that's similar is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is insanity.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
whoever actually said those things, the thing they said is what's important. So like diabetes is a really important diagnosis, right? It does a lot of things inside the body and affects the way different systems in the body work. Like it
Even
really
if
is.
not controlled, yes.
Yeah. So if somebody is not going to, like, I'm an example, right? I've made the decision not to use insulin and metformin and, semaglutide and uh, the other medications, right? I've made a personal decision not to use those things. So if I'm not going to do that, then I have to do this other thing, which was lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other option is I know that I have this problem and it's just uncontrolled and I'm just going to ride it out until the end. Right.
Yes.
Uh, so that's just irresponsible. Right.
Absolutely, yes.
So but again, it's possible based on somebody's current healthcare picture that medication might need to be a part of their plan for a while. And then you can have a goal. My goal is to, get off of blood pressure medicine, get off of
Any kind of
anxiety
medicine.
medicine, diabetes medicine, whatever the thing is. My
Yes.
goal is to get off of that. And you can work toward the goal. But then in the meantime, you still need to be working with your healthcare team. I've changed the players on my healthcare team
Uh-huh.
to find people who were willing to
Listen to you.
use their expertise to coach me towards my goal,
Uh-huh.
not just rubber stamp my goal. I
Yes.
am a nurse, but I don't know everything, right? Like God made doctors, they do know stuff that I don't know. And so I found people to be on my healthcare team that don't rubber stamp my ideas. They challenge my ideas,
Mm-hmm.
but then they also use their expertise to influence my choices. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, so I would like to summarize it because we need to wrap up quick soon. I wanted to just summarize what we were talking about. So when you are getting discharged, for a person who was in the hospital, got their diagnosis, didn't get much of instructions, so they need to find the team that they will be working with, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Start with your current healthcare provider.
yes, start with and then see if this works, or maybe you need to find somebody extra. What extras? We always recommend to find the diabetic educator or registered dietitian. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So you might even, depending on the hospital that somebody's in, they might even be able to talk with a dietitian or diabetic educator, like
in
right
the
then while they're
hospital.
still a patient, and get
Ye-
that first contact.
Yes, I know that a lot of hospitals actually had to stop their diabetes education program during the COVID and after COVID because there was a shortage of nurses.
Sure.
But to find out, it doesn't cost anything, and if it's there, most insurance plans and not even any insurance, they provide it for free, this diabetic educational classes, right? Especially if it's in the hospital.
Yeah, a lot of hospitals put those classes on. In a lot of places, there'll be like community support groups, that kind of thing. Um, there's a lot of value in, like, the concept is the wisdom is in the room.
Yes,
And so, like, if we had a bunch of people sitting around a table, we could just kind of kick the ball out in the yard, let all the
yes.
kids play with it. Um,
That's
and
what
there'd be
our
lots of
Facebook
different
group is
angles.
doing. That's what
Yeah,
our Facebook group is doing. We are
yeah. So
kicking
your group is
ideas
real
around.
valuable. Your group is real valuable that way because, right, it's made up of people who are living with diabetes and have found different ways for themselves to impact their diabetes, right?
Yes.
To not, like, some are probably in the mode of just managing it. I personally am in the mode of reversing diabetes. Um, and so, yeah, that, so the wisdom is in the room. So
Yes.
go to the Facebook group, but for a new diagnosis, um, having experienced it myself, the first thing was to come down from anxiety so that you
Yes.
can get to a spot where you can just respond rather than react, right? And then begin making lifestyle changes. Like, the thing that I did was, again, eat more of the food that's good for me, less of the food I already know is bad for me. You don't need a dietitian for that.
Yes.
Right? All of us already know that Oreos are not that good for you, and
Yes.
that cauliflower, if cauliflower tasted like Oreos, more people would eat it. But so cauliflower is better for you than cookies are.
That's right.
You don't need a dietitian to tell you that.
All right. So, what about those devices? What would you recommend people to? Well, I know that in our family, when my husband got diagnosed, it was immediately prescribed to him the blood sugar monitor and all the necessary equipment that goes with that. If
Yeah.
people did not get this prescribed to them, do you think it's a good step to make? Go to, I don't know, Walmart and purchase
Yeah.
there?
Any pharmacy, any pharmacy that sells healthcare type stuff, you can just call them and ask, do you sell this? But
Yeah.
like where I live in small town, Western Minnesota, and that stuff is easily available right over the counter. You don't need a prescription.
Yes. Well,
So
the
yes, like,
prescription only makes it less price-wise, so if you're on a budget, you
right.
probably want to get it through a prescription first, and then if it's not available, shop around for the cheaper option, right?
Yeah. So, but it is important to monitor somebody, it is important for a person to monitor their blood sugar. Um, and so, and again, depending on a person's current health picture, overall health picture, maybe it's once a day, maybe it's before every meal, whatever. There's different tempos, but get
Yes.
that tempo a one to check with whoever you're currently working with for a healthcare provider. And they'll tell you, like, well, based on your current situation, it's best to check it before every meal, or whatever. And also depending on the medications that you currently take.
Yeah.
Um, also understand that if you currently have an infection, then your blood sugar will be higher. It's just natural. And so if you find a blood sugar that, like, I currently have this infection and also my blood sugar is much higher than it normally is, that's normal. So these blood sugars are going to be out of range, but that's expected because of whatever this current condition is.
Yeah.
Right. So don't let that throw you too much.
All right. So, well, to summarize, I can say that the most important thing anybody who got this diagnosis is to calm down and don't panic. This is the diagnosis that can be reversed, can be controlled. It does not have to control you. You are in charge.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Okay. So, and then work with your doctor. But doctor can give you ideas, give you prescriptions, but you are in charge. You need to make those steps. You need to control what goes into your body. You need to make sure that you move your body in one way or another. It doesn't have to be gym exercises, right? So do I read it right?
Yep. Yeah. Physical exercise is really good for you. So
Yeah.
just pick the stuff that is fun for you that you are going to be willing to continue to do. Right.
Yeah.
And also don't do it all. Like I've been used to living on the couch. You know, I get 5 steps a day because the bathroom is so far away, like that kind of thing. Well, then tomorrow's not a good day to run a marathon.
Yes,
Right.
for sure.
So
Patience.
just
Patience.
begin. Right.
Yeah,
And
patience.
it doesn't matter if you're 20 or 60. I wish I'd learned this stuff 40 years ago. It doesn't matter. Just like today is the day.
Yes.
So start today. And but don't sign up in CrossFit and start going 8 days a week.
Yes,
Don't do that because you'll burn yourself out. You won't do it anymore.
exactly. One step at a time, slowly but surely. Just keep pushing, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Steve, we are already reached our point where we usually stop our conversations. I
Okay.
wanted to thank you for joining me today and talking about this situation from the, with the little touching the hospital, because not everybody gets there, but then a lot of people get there, and that's where people get diagnosed and don't get instructions, don't get recommendations. So calm down, reach out to your regular doctor, work with them, talk with them, connect with people who have this diagnosis and have some experience with that, and educate yourself and be patient. Don't panic. Be patient. Don't panic. Certain things that we need to eat more vegetables and fruits, less candies and cookies. Even that change will be, and more water, not the gas, not the soda drinks, right?
Right. Right.
All right. Let me just remind everyone that on August 31st, the last Saturday of the month, we will have our next Diabetic Healthcare Expo, and this is where you will have a chance to meet with Steve again. He will be speaking there also. On Fridays, we have Fitness Fridays with Trevor Brown, where he is talking about movements and different kind of exercises that you could start to implement in your lifestyle. So it will help you to get your body moving. On Thursdays, we have our Diabetically Speaking with SmartMove360 podcast. Every other Wednesday, we have our support group meetings. On Tuesday, we have Telenurse Tuesday event where our nurses are answering your questions. And on Monday, we have Motivational Mondays where we are trying to keep you a little bit more motivated to keep doing what you're already doing. With that, I would like to thank you, Steve, again. Everyone who watches us for the first time, log in again on Thursday in the Facebook group. I will make sure that we will have it going. And for those who already followed us for a while, share it with others. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Great. Thanks for having me. Hope it
All
helps.
right.